discussion with Vivienne, Ziner, Richard Bass, and Mark Vandermaas. What are Israel's legal rights and why does it matter? And downstairs in the social hall, we're going to have Sohail Raza with Muslims facing tomorrow to be a Muslim Zionist. So right here, we're going to have Israel's legal rights, basement, Muslim Zionism, and one floor on communication strategy. Thank you.
Can we say thank you to Robert Walker? Beautiful turnout of people. I'm telling you, this does not happen everywhere. This is really because people put their minds together, came together, showed up and stood up.
He is a very, very strong supporter of Israel's rights to exist. And let's just all welcome Mark Vandermaas.
Thank you, Vivienne. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do, I'm going to do something a little bit unusual. I worked with SALMON BENZIMRA for the last few years about Israel's legal rights, and I produced a few documents with his help and his advice. One of them was an amazing training booklet that you can download at IsraelTruthWeek.org, and I've trained about 400 people using hard copies of this booklet so far. What's really interesting about that is out of the 400 people, I always ask people before we get started, how many of you have heard of Balfour Declaration? How many of you have heard of Mandate? How many of you have heard of the San Remo Conference? I always ask people that. And I'm amazed. I said, how many of you have actually read the words of your country's land title deed, the Mandate for Palestine? Would you believe that out of 400 people that I've trained, Christian, Jewish, and I'm talking ardent Zionists, I mean, there's no people on the fence here. These people love Israel. Only about 8 of them have ever actually read the words of the mandate. So typically I'll go through that document and I'll do it like an hour or 2-hour training. We don't have time to do that today, but I thought I'd do something a little bit better. A little different anyways. I learned everything I wanted to know about Israel's land rights from SALMON BENZIMRA. SALMON was a great intellectual. He didn't like to be called an expert, but he certainly was. And you know, together with his partner Goldie Steiner from Canadians for Israel's Legal Rights, it really changed my life. And I realized that if we could take the mandate for Palestine, the point is not just to understand the history. Okay? It's great to understand the history. The bigger question is how do you use it? So when somebody says to you, occupation, what do you say? Israel wants peace, we don't have a peace partner. Is that effective? Does that make you look guilty or not guilty? It's not good. So somebody says, you stole my land for my house. Well, you know, Jews are nice people. My cousin invented the internet. My brother saved lives in Haiti. Are you kidding me? Why wouldn't you just hold up your land title deed and say, excuse me, the world gave us this land title deed in the form of a mandate for Palestine. Okay? So the question is, let's understand the history, but let's understand how to use it as a moral argument. You have to turn this into a moral argument. How do you do that? And I thought rather than go through some explanations, I thought I'd give you read a project that I just finished. I woke up one morning and I said, about 3 in the morning, and I said to myself, what speech would I want Bibi to give? If I could write any speech for Bibi, what would that speech be about? What would it be? And so I started writing, and I got it done in about 3 hours. And then I ran it past SALMON BENZIMRA, and he helped me tweak it a little bit. And we're going to use it as a campaign. We have a campaign. The idea is, hashtag give the speech. Tell Bibi, give the speech. So the idea is, it's written as a petition where people can say, Bibi, I want you to give this speech. And if we can get a whole bunch of people together to give the political leaders, you have to understand something. Your political leaders are not leaders. Most of them are sheep. They only move when they sense they have the public and they have a constituency on their side, and then they'll move where you want them to go. So it's up to us to create a parade and let them jump in front of it and start taking over the parade and lead us to victory. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to read this to you. Then what we're going to do is we'll hear from the other 2 speakers, Richard Bass, who's a great author, and Vivienne Ziner, wow, what a dynamo, and we'll take some questions, okay? so bear with me, this is a speech. So this is on the website. If you want to read it and sign it and endorse it, people are already starting to find it. You can find it at IsraelTruthWeek.org. Okay, you can download it in PDF. So, to Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we believe it is time to take a strong moral stand in defense of Israel in order to safeguard the honor, dignity, and security of the Jewish people. On June 22nd, 2014, you said, the only way to defeat a lie is with truth, with facts, with courage. The truth has to be told about the Jewish people and the Jewish state, first by the Jews. And by the way, this is an important lesson. There's great advantage to going out into the world and dealing with the people in the mushy middle, as a friend of mine likes to talk to. People who aren't really sure, don't know, and try to inspire them. And I think that's good work to do. The question, though, is, what I do, I spend my time training people who already know they like Israel. Because as I've already told you, so few of them have actually read their own land title deed. And when they do, it's inspiring. The first training I ever did, this lady, Renana, wrote to me. She said, Mark, all my life, I never had a copy of my country's land title deed. And it took you, a Christian, to put one in my hands. She was so moved by this thing. She keeps this document beside her all the time. It's a very moving experience. What I'm saying to you is, by all means, tell the good news stories to the people in the middle, but you better understand your own history. So let me keep continuing. So in the spirit of those words, we respectfully ask you, Benjamin Netanyahu, to seek support from your government to deliver the following speech as soon as it's practically possible. Speech is called Truth Before Solutions, A New Path to Peace. Try and pretend that I've got a little bit less hair and I've got a good Jewish accent here. And anyways, so it's Benjamin speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a momentous day in the history of Israel and the Jewish people. A day when we will take a bold step on a new path to long-term peace. After much reflection upon the many years of Israel's attempts to make peace with those who have offered us hatred and violence in return, after enduring the vicious and escalating demonization of our country and our people via lies so audacious that Joseph Goebbels himself would have been proud to claim them as his own, in the dark shadow of a world determined to side with those who have defamed and murdered us, the government of Israel has come to a crossroads, and with it, a realization. Instead of focusing on what is true and just, we have instead invested our energies into finding a solution at any price, and the price has been a terrible one. Along the way, in our eagerness to compromise with terror and conform with a world forgetful of its promises and obligations to us, we have also forgotten that there can be no peace without truth. And the truth is that the Jewish people are owners, not occupiers, because we have a land title deed from the original two-state solution, the 1922 League of Nations Mandate for Palestine, in which the world community recognized our historical ties to Palestine and encouraged us to rebuild our national home here under the protection of international law. It is immoral that the world now condemns Jews for relying on the promises it made to us in the mandate, when we build the very communities it specifically authorized us to create. It is immoral that countless Jewish souls were slaughtered in Europe because the doors to our national home were illegally slammed shut to us on the eve of World War II, in direct violation of the mandate for Palestine. It is immoral for the United Nations to give legitimacy to those who seek the destruction of Israel and to pass resolutions that violate the obligation in its charter to protect the rights of our people given in the mandate. It is immoral for the world to deny Jews the right to claim their ancient capital, Jerusalem, Israel, as a birthplace. It is immoral for the world to boycott Jewish businesses until we falsely confess to being illegal occupiers, thieves, and ethnic cleansing murderers. And it would be immoral for us to stain the history of our people by allowing the world to force upon us a new two-state solution after it has so egregiously ignored its obligations in the 1922 original. To do so would be, in effect, a false admission of guilt for the terrible crimes of which we have been unjustly accused. It would dishonor the memory of those who struggled, suffered, and died to rebuild and defend our historic national home. This home, which was reconstituted after the longest occupation in human history, nearly 2,000 years long. A real occupation that was ended by the bright and hopeful lights of the Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Conference, the Mandate for Palestine, and Article 80 of the United Nations Charter. The UN of today never questions or interferes with the borders of any other state created under the mandate system, including those of our Arab neighbors. Only the Jewish state is singled out for special treatment. If the history written since 1922 has taught us anything, it is that the Jewish people cannot rely on the world's promises. So how could we possibly trust new commitments in a new two-state solution that likely would be forgotten just as quickly as the original? Jewish honor, dignity, and security requires us to put truth before solutions and good intentions. And so, the State of Israel is placing a moratorium on all so-called solutions until the world community acknowledges and upholds their obligations to us in the Mandate for Palestine. Then, and only then, after the intimidation to confess to crimes we have never committed is no more, would it be morally legitimate to ask the Jewish people to decide whether or not they wish to give away the land of our ancestors, the land promised to us by our God. In the meantime, we will defend ourselves with all our strength against those seeking to perpetrate a second Holocaust against the Jewish people, and we will do so with a clear conscience. We are not asking Israelis to embrace or reject any of the various peace proposals presented to date. They're all problematic. We feel that at this time the best approach is to address the most pressing issue, that of preserving the honor of the Jewish people until an appropriate lasting solution can be found. And this process begins now by reminding the world of the legal and territorial rights granted to us under the Mandate for Palestine and asking that they be respected from this day onward. In so doing, we hope to begin to turn back the terrible tide of hate, lies, violence, and political intimidation associated with the false occupation narrative. Our new approach includes providing education for every Israeli citizen and member of the diaspora about the history of our country's land title deed and the original two-state solution initiated by Article 25 in the Mandate for Palestine, and supporting those who wish to take this education to the nations. Where this will lead in the short term, I cannot say, but I can say this with absolute certainty. Yesterday we had no peace and no truth. From this day forward, we will at least be able to walk in the light and dignity of truth. This in itself is an important step forward on the path to long-term peace, and we ask the world community to walk with us. We call on the leaders of the nations, especially those that were members of the League of Nations in 1922 and were therefore original parties to the mandate's obligations, to refresh their country's collective memory of the Mandate for Palestine and ask themselves a fundamental question. Is my country's policy on Israel morally consistent with the promises we made to the Jewish people in the Mandate? And if the answer is no, then I respectfully call on you to update your policy. I promise that your role in justly restoring and safeguarding the reputation of my people and our nation in the record of history will never be forgotten by us or by God. I encourage you to take the time necessary to familiarize yourself with the promises made to the Jewish people in their land title deed, the Mandate for Palestine, the original two-state solution, and copies can be downloaded at IsraelTruthWeek.org. And tomorrow, after you've had a chance to review this remarkable document, I will gladly answer your questions. Thank you. Questions on the strategy of this. I mean, some of you may have questions on that. And that was it. That is actually some history and some activism and some real counter-propaganda strategy in there. Some of you will get it. Some of you, you can ask me about it later. I'm available. I'm around, so you can talk about it. Can you imagine Bibi giving this speech? Can you imagine the Google would blow up with searches, Mandate for Palestine? And what it does is it puts the other side on the defensive and says, we're taking a moral stand. We're owners, we're not occupiers, and we have a land title deed and we expect it to be upheld. And it's morally wrong for you to demonize us. Call us when you're ready to get started. And that's the day I live for, totally. And that's because of SALMON BENZIMRA.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everybody. My name is Richard Bass. I'm going to actually direct this talk, if it's okay, to the guys in the back who are college and university students for the time being. Hi, guys. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you that when I was in high school and university, you couldn't have paid me to go to Israel. I didn't really care. I didn't want to know anything about the politics, and this was true until very late in my life. I'm a high school teacher by trade, career educator, and it wasn't until about 10 years ago that I really wanted to know anything about Israel. It was just a lot of noise that I wanted nothing to do with. So what happened? I heard a guy speak a while back who started to talk about the legal history with regard to how the Jewish state came into existence. And being a teacher of law and philosophy, it interested me because law is basically like science. I mean, you may not be okay with what the law is, but it's still the law. And there are processes for changing it if you don't like it. But it's different than saying, it's not true. A legal decision is a legal decision. Just like when a court of law makes a legal decision, that decision stands, and then we have processes as citizens to want to change that. So why did it change my headspace so much? Because the first person I heard talk about it actually said something that I thought, well, this could not be possible. This information couldn't be true. I mean, because the world doesn't act like it's true. What is that information? That approximately 100 years ago, in 1920, following on the heels of the Paris Peace Conference, a group of world leaders met in a town called San Remo, Italy. There's a music festival there now. It's on the Italian Riviera. Take a look at the pictures. It's a nice place to hang out. What happened there 100 years ago was these group of people basically came to, they created a document, well, it became a document. What came out of there was a resolution called the San Remo Resolution, which became international law. It followed it basically incorporated the provisions that Balfour made. People are familiar. I saw a bunch of hands go up about the Balfour Declaration. Right? And what it did is it took those provisions and it incorporated into a treaty. A treaty as an international instrument is one of the strongest sources of international law. What did that treaty say? Basically that the world, because they were representing the world at the time, they were the countries that actually had captured the former Ottoman territories. And if you know much about the way the world works, I mean, people take territory in war, at least back then, it becomes theirs. The Ottoman territory relinquished their rights to the territory, and those world leaders basically decided that that territory the world was obligated to return that territory back to the Jewish people. So they used the words like reconstitute and the things like different sentences in the Balfour Declaration, right? What the British government originally said, that we recognize the Jewish people's historical connection to the land, and then the mandate for Palestine, and they continued, said their right to reconstitute their national home there. Okay? So I don't want to get into all the details about it. You're welcome to ask questions. I'm just going to actually do a quick segue now. Right? And I'm speaking again to you guys, the college students, some of you are sitting in the front row. How many of you have ever heard the claim that Israel actually occupies some of the territory from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean, that we're occupiers? You've heard that? Yes?
Yes.
Do you think it's true? You guys in the back, you think it's true? You're shaking your head no. Why?
We're owners.
Sorry?
We're owners.
Okay, so maybe, okay, I'm not going to disagree with you. You don't have to, I don't want to put you on the spot, right? But you don't think it's true, but do you have an idea why you don't think it's true? Why is it not true?
It's just what I've been taught. It's what I've heard from my sources.
Okay? Do you have any idea why? Sorry, I know I don't want to leave the grown-ups out of the conversation here, but I want to speak to the university and high school students first. If you're okay with this, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, heaven forbid. Can you give me one thing that maybe you've heard that would be some reason to support the claim that we're not occupiers, or to say it a different way, that the legal title belongs to the state of Israel and the Jewish people? One thing. I don't want to put you on the spot. It's totally fine if you don't. To be honest with you, I mean, I couldn't have 10 years ago either. But it's important to know. Why is it important to know? Because whatever you think politically the solution should be, right? I'm not going to talk about political solutions here, all right? Whether you think that the Jewish people should trade land for peace, whatever you're holding, whatever your positions are, I think it's important that you understand, right, what the legal decisions were, right, and who actually has title to that territory according to international law. Because once you know that, then you can move forward. So, for example, if I were to ask somebody, right, I mean, are you the legal owner of your house? Most people, I think, would say yes. How do you know that? Because you have a document that says so, right? So when somebody accuses somebody of being an occupier, what they're really saying is, you've come and taken something that you are not the owner of. In international law, what that means is a state has taken territory that belongs to another state that it is not entitled to. Right? That's what the definition basically is, sum it up in one sentence. So when you say no, right, we're not occupiers, what you're saying is, well, the state of Israel did not take land, right, that belongs to another entity. Number one. And number two, I guess you could go even farther and say, well, the state of Israel, did they take land that they are the owner of? In which case, can you really be the occupier of land that you actually own? Right? So this is kind of the foundation of the legal argument, right, and the entire occupation claim. Yeah, I know we're going to take questions in a second because I want to give Vivienne a chance to speak, but I just thought I'd set that up for you. What interested me about this topic is there actually is a legal history here, right? Decisions were actually made by a group of people who were basically the Supreme Court of the world at the time. They changed the entire map of Europe, and the decisions they made became law. They were accepted by the nations that became law. And those same people met a year after that Paris Peace Conference and then made decisions in regards to all the territories of the Middle East that were up for grabs, right? And it wasn't just the Jewish people that got land titles then. It was also a good chunk of the Arab Middle East. There was no Syria and Lebanon before this conference, and there was no Iraq and Mesopotamia. I mean, Mesopotamia is an ancient name, right? But the Arab people were given millions of square miles of territory which they were never the sovereign owner of according to international law. And at the same point in time, the Jewish people were given this land called Palestine. Right? This is the foundation of the legal argument. I think I'll stop there. That's enough to think about. And I guess all of us will be happy to answer questions later, but that's at least a little bit of maybe some background.
Before I start, I just want to acknowledge someone whose presence is very much missed here today, not just by me, but by all of us who are lovers of Israel and advocates of Israel, and that is our dear friend SALMON BENZIMRA. He was supposed to be speaking with us today. He was our own blessed Monsieur le Professeur, and he's very, very sadly missed. He will be. Nous vous aime, Solomon, and nous vous manque beaucoup. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from my esteemed friends and colleagues, Richard and Mark, as to the why. Why Israel as an entire entity belongs to the Jewish people from a rational, logical, and legal point of view. Well, any of you who know me know that that's not exactly my strongest point. So we're going to embark on a bit of a different journey, and let's go. How many of you know that the word ghetto is Italian? And how many of you know that this year marks the 500th anniversary of the ghetto in Venice? Okay, well, so let us begin. About 500 years ago, the elite in Italy decided that they were going to expel all the Jews from Italy. So we have our reason number one why we need a homeland, which is that throughout the ages, all the other nations have tried to exterminate us, enslave us, expel us, kill us, destroy us, annihilate us. It is a very compelling reason to have a homeland. So back to my story. All of the Jews in Italy went into this huge panic, and they went to the chief rabbi of Italy, and he was this little unassuming guy with face and with tzitzis. And for the purpose of this story, we will give him a Polish Yiddish accent, not because he had one, but because it makes it more fun. So the people said, Rabbi, listen, Rabbi, we need that you should go and you should speak with the Pope in Rome. He's the only one that can change the edict and let us stay in Italy. And the chief rabbi said, what, are you crazy? I'm a little guy in little simple robes. He's the most powerful man in Christendom. And besides which, he doesn't speak any Hebrew and I don't speak any Italian. So how am I going to communicate with him? And the people said, don't worry, Rabbi, we have faith in you. You'll figure out a way. Lesson number two. We, the Jewish people, are very persuasive, we are very resourceful, and we're very smart. So, our little rabbi goes off to meet the most important man in all of Christendom. He enters into this palatial palace where everything is gold and beautiful and magnificent. And he's carrying his little pekala in his hand, and he's going, oy, in his head, because this is not going to be an easy scenario. Okay, so he enters into this golden chamber, and he's ushered up to the Pope, who's sitting in his splendorous throne with pomp and ceremony. And again, the rabbi goes, oy. So the Pope looks down at him with great disdain, and looks him up and down and allows his great displeasure to register, and he waves imperiously at this little rabbi to come forward, and the little rabbi, with great trepidation, does so and stands in front of the majestic Pope. And the Pope begins. Now you have to watch this, because otherwise I'll know that you're not listening. The Pope goes like this. He draws a huge circle in the air and smiles down at the rabbi with great condescension and scorn. And the little rabbi thinks for a second, and then he jabs his finger into the air, into what would have been the center of the circle. He then, and the Pope is watching this, he's like really quite fascinated by this, and he gestures to an aide to bring a chair for the rabbi to sit down. So the rabbi sits down with the Pope. The Pope is into heavy meditation, and about 3 hours later, he smiles at the rabbi and he holds up a finger, like this, his index finger. The rabbi smiles, and without a moment's hesitation, he holds up 3 fingers, like this. The Pope jumps around and begins walking around in a great state of agitation, and finally comes back, and with a sly smile on his face, he goes over to where the host is held, and he pulls out the host, the wafer, and he puts it in his mouth. And the rabbi looks at him and very silently goes into his pekala and takes out an apple, and he takes a bite of the apple. Then the Pope jumps up, hugs the rabbi, kisses him, and dances around with the rabbi. The rabbi then leaves. The cardinals then come running up to the Pope's sanctum, and they say, so when are the Jews going to be leaving Italy? And the Pope flies into a state of indignity, and he says, leave. The Jews are not going to leave. They are the most brilliant theologians I have ever met. No, we keep them safe in Italy. Cardinals were shocked, and they said, well, Papa, what happened? He said, first I said to the rabbi, God is the universe. The rabbi, he says to me, no, God is the center of the universe. And then he says, I went into heavy meditation, and I'm thinking, and then I said, there is only one God. And the rabbi says, without a moment's hesitation, no, you believe in the three, the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. So I was shocked by his knowledge, his understanding, the depth of his insight, and then I set out to stump him. And after much meditation and thinking, I took a piece of the host, I put it into my mouth, representing sin and retribution. And within moments, the rabbi, he bested me. He took out an apple and he took a bite out of it, representing the original sin, and what man needs to banish, not to conquer, and no, we're not banishing these people. Meanwhile, back with the Jews of Italy, the Jews gathered around and said, so, nu, Rabbi, what happened? And the rabbi said, you know, I walked in, and the Pope said, we're going to gather all the Jews up in Italy. And he said, when? Now? He said, I'll give you 1 day. I said, how about 3? And then we had lunch. Now, there is a reason for this joke. The first thing is communication. If you want to be an activist on behalf of Israel, you have to, without fail, communicate. Against all odds, against any obstacles, you must be committed to try and get the truth out. Truth resonates. Even in the most difficult scenarios and situations, if you open up the door, a crack, if you get one person to begin to hear your narrative, you've already affected change. 2, take a risk. Don't be afraid to take a position. You are not a victim. You are a champion of freedom. You have to be able to go against people who believe that you are a victim and that you do not have rights. I'm just putting this down because I'm going to my other notes. So, if you want to get the story of Israel's legal rights out, first of all, you take the information. It's the most important thing. You take the information that both Mark and Richard have been speaking about, and you make a commitment. You say to yourself, I am going to make a commitment. 1 hour a week, 5 hours every 10 days, whatever it is, you make a commitment that you will do something actively to support Israel, to support the truth about Israel. Write it down and honor it, because when you've made the commitment, the opportunities to support Israel will come. Get informed, get educated, watch Richard's videos, learn what groups you want to follow, what you want to listen to. Times of Israel, Jerusalem Today, read blogs, read my blogs, I'll be very happy, they're on Times of Israel. If you are over 65 years of age, you should go to university lectures that are about politics for many reasons. First of all, you can go and learn something. That's not so terrible. If you're over 65, I believe you do not have to pay to go to the courses. The difference between you and those young people back there, they have to pass. They have to pass. They have to get a good mark. They can't take on their professors. They can't do that. You can go and make a noise. Go and make people uncomfortable when they are saying lies, when they are saying untruths. Own it. You have a responsibility to all the young people here. Challenge the professors and challenge those that negate us. Change the narrative. If there's one thing that is the most important thing you can do, you change the narrative. The two-state solution is not a solution. The two-state solution is about Bill Clinton wanting to have the Nobel Peace Prize, him going and telling AIPAC and getting the American Jews on board and UJA on board. I'm sorry, I'm not politically correct. 5 minutes, oh my God. We started late, okay. So, you change the narrative. And you don't allow people to force their narrative on you. No two-state solution. Why? It's not legitimate. It was never legitimate. It is a falsely created narrative, and you have to push back on that. I was once shocked. I was walking down the street and I was talking to somebody and about Tazpit, which is my real love, because Tazpit is about Israel's information coming from Israel that's real, and you all have to support Tazpit News Agency. It's like AP, but they didn't play around with the Nazis and stuff, so, or Reuters. It's our news agency. You have to support the news, the reality, the truth coming out of Israel. And this South African says to me, I was talking, he says, hey man, you're not like the settlers. Like he's talking like they're Nazis or like they're the Ku Klux Klan. It's like, what are you saying? You have to know, the settlers of the 21st century, they're not settlers, they're communities. The settlers of the 21st century are the kibbutzniks of the 19th and 20th century, and you support them, and you hold them dear, because they are protecting you. We have no more land rights to Tel Aviv than we do to Judea and Samaria. So you're either in for a penny, or you're in for a penny. You better support the entire story of Israel. You change the words. It is not the occupied territories. It is not the West Bank. It is Judea and Samaria. It is not suicide bombers. I wish they were suicide bombers. They're homicide bombers because they take the rest of us with them. Okay? So, we change the narratives. We change the way that we present things. We don't accept other people telling us what we do or do not own. You are not an Israeli activist when you're out there. You are a human rights activist. You have to bring people in. You have to convince them to come into your sphere. If you come out and say, I'm an Israeli activist, blah, 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 you'll get pushback. Change the words. Change the mindset. It is more about how you say things than what you say. I don't agree with everything that the Consul General said, but I do agree about making room for conversation and about not lecturing. You cannot lecture people. We have to reach out to other communities. You have to make friends. I was at a Sufi mosque last night. I speak to the Kurdish people. I support them in terms of what they're trying to do. I try to help with the Yazidi. There are Iraqi Christians that need help. We cannot stand as a itty-bitty little people on our own. We have to reach out to other communities, other minorities. There is strength in numbers. There's strength in creating not one thread at a time, but a woof and warp and weave. That's an awful lot of W's. Okay. I would suggest you all learn about intersectionality. It is one of the things your children are suffering on campus, never mind BDS. BDS is being propped up by a horrible, disgusting concept called intersectionality. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but that's your homework, okay? We have to change the media. We have to change how the media is influenced. And that's another reason to support a Tazpit that brings out our point of view, the point of view about Israel through Israeli eyes. What's going on? Tazpit. I'll give you my email address. You can ask me about all of these things as well. We have to influence the politicians. It's really important to go, to make them hear us, to understand our fears and our concerns. And when they do something right, I have to tell you, CJ did a great thing this week. They thanked Stefan Dion yes, and it was really important because he got up and he spoke out against the UNRWA or the whatever, schmuck, whatever, the Canadian. It's a big thing. So you have to turn around, and you can't. We have to make friends in every single possible way that we can. There are also, we have to take people on and challenge them from legal points of view. There's Shirat Hadin. There's the Legal Forum of Israel. There is, okay, are you giving me like that? Where's the, okay. I'm up 2 more seconds and I'm done. David Nitkin will be speaking about lawfare. Make the commitment. Stand with Israel. There are lots of different groups that you can get involved with as well. Now, very quickly, you have to believe in miracles. You have to believe in miracles. Egypt is a miracle. If you think about what happened, if you think about, God forbid, what would have happened if the Muslim Brotherhood was still still in power in Egypt. The fact that I mean, that's just like amazing. So, you know, Mr. Obama, you can depend on that one. And I was going to finish with another joke, but I just won't. Thank you.
Guys, I'm just going to do, for me, a quick wrap-up, 30 seconds. I believe the topic of today's lecture was Israel's legal rights, which implies that Israel has legal rights, rights according to international law. What is the source of those rights? They started with the Balfour Declaration. That was the beginning of the legal process. It then moved on after the Paris Peace Conference, when presentations were made. This is after World War I, when land title was given. According to the Supreme Court of the world at the time, called the Supreme Council of the Allied Powers, and then was ratified later in the Mandate for Palestine based on decisions were made in San Remo. Okay? I urge you to check out this information. It's all public knowledge. It's all public record. It is law, right? And it is a big response to understanding why this occupation claim has no grounds in fact. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with that. Right? There is a legal process, right? Check it out. Okay, thank you.
Let me give my 30-second wrap-up too. Thank you so much. I forgot to mention that Richard's authored 2 really great books, and I can't remember the title of the last one. Richard, what is it called? Israel, Palestine for Critical Thinkers, and he weaves the mandate issue right between. I'd like to leave you with one thought here. And those of you, SALMON BENZIMRA was supposed to speak here today, and it's a real tragic loss, but if you want to honor him, and I'll tell you what I told people at his funeral, go to CILR.org and get a copy of his book. It's CILR.org, and you can, it's an ebook, or you can get a Hebrew version for free in PDF. Or you can go to IsraelTruthWeek.org and you can download your land title deed here. It's I call it my mandate training manual. And I want you to read it, because I think what would be really tragic is that you allowed your kids to go one more day thinking that there's even a chance that their people stole someone else's land and are ethnically cleansing it. I think that would be tragic. And just for the sake of reading, you can read the mandate and the Trans-Jordan memo here, which I call the original 2-state solution. It's only about 12 pages. And I want you to be inspired. If you have questions, you're welcome to call me. Robert Walker has my number. And I'll answer any questions that you have that I can, and I can call, can always get Richard Bass to talk about it. But please, leave here today, read your land title deed, share it with your family, and don't let your kids go one more day believing they could be occupiers. Thank you so much.